Down the right field line, pretty well hit. LaVarn way is the right way here tonight.
Yogi Berra said it's 90% mental, the other half is physical. My name is Ryan LaVarnway, Major League catcher and minor league grinder, and I've spent the last 15 years playing professional baseball while evolving my mindset. I'm fascinated by optimizing that 90%. In this show, I'll talk to elite athletes and mindset coaches about what makes them tick and how they've overcome obstacles in their own careers on the way to finding success. This is Finding the Way. Hey guys, welcome to Finding the Way. I am Ryan LaVarnway, and I'm so excited today to be joined by Ruben Gonzalez. He is the first, and I think only person, to ever compete in 4 different Winter Olympics in 4 different decades. He's one of the most popular speakers in America, and his book, The Courage to Succeed, has been translated into 10 languages. If you're interested in checking out Ruben, he has a TED Talk called The Power of Following the Leader, and everything I have heard about him makes me so excited to talk to him. He's going to change my life, and hopefully he changes yours. Ruben, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, man, the pressure's on now. I'm happy to be here.
So for those of our listeners that don't know you yet or don't maybe know the sport of luge, which I see it once every 4 years in the Winter Olympics, explain how you got started in luge, what your fascination with being an Olympian was in the first place, and how it started so late in your life.
I'm an unlikely Olympian. I can't run fast. I can't jump high. Not particularly strong. I'm like your neighbor. I had the Olympic dream ever since I was 10 years old, but it was a pipe dream because I wasn't even getting picked to play kickball, okay? And so I read about the Olympics, and I was fascinated about it, but didn't take action because it was a pipe dream at that point. When I was my dad got me to read biographies. He said, study the lives of great people. You'll figure out what works, what doesn't work in life. So I did, and I liked them because biographies were true life adventures. What I kept seeing over and over again was perseverance. They were just a bunch of hardheads. My mom always called me a hardhead, so I thought, maybe I got a little bit of what it takes. And so I'm reading books and growing, right? Unbeknownst to me, I'm growing and starting to take more and more risks. And when I was 21, I'm watching the Olympics on TV. I see Scott Hamilton, the figure skater, win the gold medal. And everything changed. I thought, if that little guy can win, I can at least play. I'll be in the next ones no matter what. I just have to find a sport. And all of a sudden, I had the belief to go with the desire, right? And so I went to the library because I had a dream with a deadline. At first, I looked at the summer sports. It took me 5 minutes to realize you got to be Superman to do any of these things. There's no way. And then I started looking at the list of the winter sports, and my nickname, because I was so perseverant, my nickname in high school was Bulldog. And so I'm looking through the winter sports, and I thought, I'm about to put together a plan for the next 4 years. It probably will make sense to base the plan on my strengths. My strength's not athleticism. My strength's perseverance. I'm Bulldog. So I thought, I need to find a sport that's so tough. The sport's got so many broken bones in it. There'd be a lot of quitters, right? And let's just ride the attrition rate all the way to the top. I had it down to ski jump, bobsled, and luge. I picked the luge because I could do that one by myself, and ski jump looked like a suicide, so forget that. And wrote Sports Illustrated, asked them, where do you go learn how to luge? They said Lake Placid, New York, and I went to Lake Placid and learned. And so I made it by the skin of my teeth 4 times, but I got to play with the big boys.
Oh, my God. So this podcast I've called Finding the Way, and the whole concept behind it is how mindset can set you apart, or something internal can set you apart that your physical body won't be able to do. And you are such the perfect guest, because what you just described is you're not tall, you don't run fast, you're not super strong, but something inside your head, something inside your heart made you special, and it made you an Olympian 4 separate times. So I'm so excited to continue this conversation. Something you just said to me about you found the belief to go with the desire. And something in your TED Talk about the power of following the leader and the power of finding a coach that you can believe in and submit to and listen to. Talk to me about finding your belief to go with the desire, or finding the ability to be coachable and let go of your control that helped take you to that next level.
Okay. That first book that I wrote, it's called The Courage to Succeed, okay? It's not my courage to succeed, it's the courage to succeed, right? And I've always believed that you need two types of courage to reach your goal. You have to have the courage to get started, and everything's hard at the beginning because you don't have any skills. And so you have to have the courage to endure, right? To stay in the game long enough to learn those skills and then use the skills to reach the goal. And so the courage to get started, that comes from believing it's possible. You believe it's possible, hey, I'll give it a shot. The courage to not quit, that comes from your desire. Okay, if you want it badly enough, ain't nothing gonna make you quit. And weak desires give you weak results, right? You have to, because if you don't have a big desire, if you like the idea of being an Olympian, well, as soon as it gets tough or inconvenient, you'll quit, right? Because success is inconvenient. It's uphill battle. And so I always had the desire, didn't have the belief till I saw Scott Hamilton, right? And then I went and I started learning. But that tenaciousness and that perseverance, that hard-headedness, that helped me get through the first 4 years, rather, especially the first 2 years of learning how to luge. See, I show up at 21. At first, they were laughing. They said, no way, man. You should have 10 years experience at your age. We started when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. No way. And I wouldn't hang up, and because I thought if I hang up the phone, it's all over, right? So you can't hang up. That's not an option. I just kept talking to them. And I'm trying to think, right? Because my mentors used to say, when you hit a wall, just start telling yourself, there's always a way. There's always a way. If I don't quit, I'll find a way. Because God always give you a way. And so I got that going in my head. And I happened to tell him that I was born in Argentina. And the guy gets all excited all of a sudden, okay? And by the way, I am pretty ADD, so I'm going to go on tangents, off my tangents. So you may have to reel me back, but that's okay.
That's fine.
So he gets all excited, and he says, if you'll go for Argentina, we'll help you. And I said, why? A minute ago, you weren't going to help me at all. And he said, the sport of luge is really close to getting kicked out of the Olympics because we're not global enough. We don't have enough countries. It's just the U.S., Canada, and, a few European countries. We're recruiting. So if you'll go for Argentina, you'll travel with us. We'll train you. We'll even lend you a sled the first year. We're going to have to take 10 years. It takes 10 years to learn this sport. We're going to have to compress it into just 2 years. You're going to get hurt a lot. But we need to do this because the last 2 years, you need to be in the World Cup circuit trying to qualify. You still have to be one of the top 50 in the world to get to go. It doesn't matter where you're from. And I said, how come you're going to let me, you go to all this trouble for Argentina? And they said, well, think about it. We've been investing millions of dollars into our U.S. team to hopefully, get in the medals eventually. But if we stop being an Olympic sport, it's money down the drain. So it turned out I fell into a win-win, and I went, and it was brutal the first few years. I mean, I broke my foot twice, my knee, my elbow, my hand, my thumb, a couple of ribs, but I just kept coming back. When he told me you're going to break some bones, after I hung up, the reality hit, and I thought, he didn't say I might break some bones. He said I will break some bones. So how am I going to handle it, right, when that happens? And I thought, well, I've broken bones before. You wear a cast for 6 weeks, take off the cast, it's healed up and stronger than before. So when you really think about it, it's just a temporary inconvenience. So I reframed it in my mind, right? And I knew how I was going to handle it. And so to answer the last part of that question, that tenaciousness got me through those first 2 years, right, when I was crashing and burning. But that same tenaciousness made it very hard for me to follow a leader. My dad, ever since I was little, he used to say, life is like a minefield, okay? It's full of challenges. You're going to have to cross minefields throughout your life. And the smartest way to cross a minefield is to follow somebody that's already crossed it, right? Just follow in their footsteps. That's the safe way. And so he always had me, programmed to always look for the coach or the mentor. Look for someone that has fruit on the trees, not a theorist, somebody that's actually been through that minefield, right? And they'll speed up your success. So I would always look for the coach or mentor, but then when they gave me advice, part of me would resist, right? I just wouldn't act on it right away, and because I was a hardhead. And so I learned everything the hard way. In fact, one of my first coach, he jokes at me all the time. He says, you weren't bulldog, you were a half bulldog and a half mule. If you'd have just listened to me, you wouldn't have gotten hurt nearly as much. Well, my third Olympics, Salt Lake, 2002, I was 39. And my previous one had been 10 years before that, Albertville, 92. So when I walk into the Olympic Village at Salt Lake, I felt old all of a sudden because everybody's in their 20s. I was 39. I felt just like a dad feels walking into a college to visit his kids, right? And everybody's asking me, so what are you coaching? I says, no, I'm an athlete. And they look at me up and down and say, come on, what are you coaching? I didn't even believe me. And so I thought, I guess this is the last one. Well, a few years later, I got the itch again, started training, and on the road to Vancouver 2010. I was 47 then. Okay, everybody thought I was coach's dad by then. But Vancouver, I was always about when you do the math, I was always about 45 in the world. So when top 50 was the cutting point, if I worked my tail off, I had a pretty good shot. And I did, right? 3 out of 3. But the last one, Vancouver, they said top 40 get to go, not top 50. And so I really felt, between being the oldest one by far and harder to qualify, I thought, I just better listen to coach right away, or else. And I did. And as soon as I did, I started improving faster than I ever had before. And I was actually sliding better at 55, right? I had personal bests at 55 than ever before in my career. And so that's when I really became a believer of, you just find that mentor and then just let go, right? And follow in their footsteps right away and look out, and you'll reach your goal so much faster.
Man, that's wild. It's such a crazy journey that you've been on, and it's so impressive. When I look at your journey and I've listened to your podcast, and you talk about how your body endures 6 G's of force, and you're hurtling yourself off of a 5-story building ramp, and you're traveling at 80 to 90 miles per hour with nothing between you and the ground but a little bit of fiberglass. That must be terrifying. Is there, right? It's terrifying to watch it or to think about it. Do you have a trick for overcoming your fear that some of our listeners might be able to use if they have a big sales pitch or something in their own life that they're maybe a little intimidated by, that you can share? Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, especially if you're listening to this and you're a sales manager, get your people to watch my TED Talk, right? It's Follow the Leader, TEDTalk.com, right? I just bought the URL and it points to the talk. 12-minute talk that really will help your folks. But I white-knuckled it for 25 years, okay? I hated the luge, but I saw that the luge was a vehicle that would help me get to the Olympics, right? I wasn't going to do it playing ping pong or soccer, which I really enjoy. That wasn't going to happen. And so I did it regardless. And on the way to when I was starting to train for Vancouver, I'm a 3-time Olympian, and my coach noticed, man, I can't believe you're still stiff on the sled. You're scared, aren't you? And it's a new coach. This is a coach that knew how the head works, right? So he'd get in my head. And he goes, you're still scared, aren't you? He goes, yeah, man. Well, what's going on in your head as you're sliding? And I told him, man, as I see those walls going faster and faster, I get tighter and tighter. I can't believe I can even steer at the bottom of the track because by then I'm stiff like a board. And he said, luge is not even about speed, okay? They can clock you at the fastest speed, but if you crash at the bottom of the track, you lost the race. Luge is about who has the best time. In fact, it's the only Olympic sport that's timed to the 1/1000th of a second. That's how important time is in our sport. Wow. He says, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Stop looking at those walls. They're just scaring you. Pretend you got blinders like a horse, and focus on a spot 30 feet in front of you, and your mindset, your thinking needs to be, what do I need to do on every section of every curve to ensure that I'll have the best time? If you change your focus, the fear will disappear. Well, I trust this guy, and that night at the hotel, I did about 100 mind runs, visualization runs with the blinders on. The next day, on my next run, the fear disappeared. It didn't reduce in intensity, it disappeared. Changing the focus changed the whole experience. And so what are people focusing on today or any day, right? They're always focusing on the news, on the economy, on the inflation. They're focusing on all this stuff that they can't control, just like I can't control the speed. Stop watching the news. Stop reading the newspaper. If you're in sales, go buy your competitor a USA Today subscription, right? Knock them down. But don't focus on that. Focus on what do you need to do in the next 15 minutes to move your business forward, who you need to call, who you need to send an email to. And it's not necessarily a sales call. It could be, hey, how's it going? I was thinking about you. I just read something that made me think about you. I want to send you this article, whatever. Something to strengthen the relationship. It might be a service call, right? Hey, how's everything going? Did it work out? And when they're ready to sell, you'll be top of mind. What can you do in the next 15 minutes? And if you just keep doing that all day long, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.
Yeah, you talk about changing the focus, and it's unbelievable. I do the same thing with when I'm hitting, right? When I'm in the box, if I'm thinking about what the pitcher's throwing or what I did the last 3 at-bats, I'm not focused on what I need to do. And I found that I'm successful when I can minimize my thoughts but control them in a specific manner of what's going to be positive for me, the input that I put into my head to get out of my body that I want to get out of my body.
Yeah. You're right at when you're at bat, or when you're up at the start on the top of the luge track, you want to just let go. You want your subconscious, you want to trust your training, right, and just let go so that you'll be your best. And it's funny, on the way to Vancouver, one of the races was going to be in Lillehammer, and I'd never raced there before, and so I went a couple of weeks before just to train. And coming out of curve 13, and most tracks have 15, 16 curves. They start about 50 stories up and about 3/4 of a mile long. And coming out of curve 13, it's almost like an optical illusion. It looks like you're going to slam into the wall, and even if you have a good line. And whenever I hit 13, I would just go just like that, right? Like scared. And that would put me into a skid, and I would skid right through there. I'd fix the skid, but by then I'd lost all this time. And, if I did that during the race, there's no way I was going to get the points I needed to qualify. And so I'll come back to Houston. I was there for 2 weeks. And Coach said, look, what are you doing on 13? You got a good line coming into 13. And then he even showed me on video, right? But it was like a mental block. I'd see it, and I thought, And so when I come back to Houston, I've got a friend who's he's kind of like a sports psychiatrist kind of guy. And he says, bring your sled over to my house and we'll figure it out. And he had me, lay on the sled and, do mind runs. And he goes, okay, let's figure out what you're thinking. Tell me what you're thinking when you get to 13. And he asked me the same thing a bunch of different ways. He says, well, I don't know what's going to make it come out of your head. Okay, so bear with me. And at one point I said, here it comes. And he says, what? Is that what you're thinking? Here it comes? I goes, yeah, here it comes. And he goes, well, that's it, man. You're being totally reactive, all right? You're being defensive. He says, from now on, you're going to say, here I come. That's your new mantra, okay? Here I come. You're going to stick it to the track, not it's going to get you. And so I wrote here I come on my bookmarks, on my desk, on my steering wheel, on the cowling of my sled. I mean, it says on the cowling, it says, have fun, smile, here I come, right? That's the last thing, right? And when I go back to Lillehammer, piece of cake, right? That fixed it. And so many times it's just a little tweak, right? A little negative self-talk that's just killing you, right? But if you talk to the right person, they can figure it out. They can help you.
Oh, that's
Success
amazing.
is simple, okay?
Yeah,
it's real simple.
Here it comes versus here I come. All you did was take one letter away, and it changed the message. It changed how you reacted to it psychologically.
Yeah, and I still use it, and I still have some of those old "Here I Come," bookmarks from 12 years ago.
You went from intimidated and maybe being hunted to now you're the hunter, you're the attacker.
Absolutely, from victim to victor, right? So I'm in control. Yeah,
that's incredible. You've mentioned taking mind runs a couple times before. I imagine you're talking about visualization. What are your keys when you're visualizing what you're going to do? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to get out of it? How much time do you spend doing that? Talk to me about visualization for you.
There's 2 different ways that we do visualization in the luge. And by the way, people always ask me, does it have to be in color? Does it have to be 3D, first person, third person? And I tell them, look, if you can just capture the feeling, right? What's it going to feel like? That's so much more powerful than just capturing what it's going to look like. I wish they called it feelerization, okay? Because then people would probably use it more. And it's like when you think of, when you were a little kid, most little kids here in the U.S., they're playing basketball, and they always do the same thing. There's 5 seconds left. He takes the shot. He scores. Ah, that's visualization. You just feel like you won the NBA, right?
Yep.
And that gives you belief and power. I got goosebumps. I don't play basketball, right? I got goosebumps from making that winning shot, right? And so, what's it gonna feel like? What's it gonna taste like? What's it gonna be like when you finally make your dream come true? And so, but in the luge, the way we do it is 10 minutes before my run, whether it's a practice run or a race run, you take a few runs in your mind, right? And the luge run takes about a minute, and you just kind of get your body into it. I mean, you see the guys up at the start house, they got their eyes closed, and they're just feeling it right with their bodies. It's a feel sport. You're actually torquing the sled down that's how you steer it. And you always picture you always visualize the perfect run.
Sorry, the Wi-Fi broke up there for a second. Can you start over with that story where you were talking about up at the start house?
Yeah, sure.
You see you guys sealing it?
Go ahead and let me know.
Yeah, that was the first time the Wi-Fi's broke up right there.
Yeah, no worries. Up at the start house is different though. What we do right before a training run or a race run, and we do them both exactly the same, right? So before a training run or a race run, when it's about 10 minutes before, you'll just go to a quiet place in the start house, you close your eyes, and you start taking that run in your mind, right? And you see somebody, and they're actually using their arms, and they're using their whole body, right? Because you're morphing into the curves. So that's what you do. You're actually torquing the sled to drive it. There's no moving parts, like on a bobsled where it actually has steering. And so you always visualize the perfect run because you take a few runs in your mind before it's your turn to go. So you're trying to get yourself into that groove, right? So when you're on the ice at 90 miles an hour, your body's doing the right thing. And so, but up at the hotel room, we do it different. We'll take a few runs. We call it, we practice escape routes. What are you going to do if you're a little late into curve one? How are you going to fix it, right? What are you going to do if you're a little early? What if you hit the left wall before curve one? What if you hit the right wall? How are you going to fix that? And we do it for the whole track, and that's contingency planning, right? That prepares you because by doing that, you're preparing for the worst, right? And hoping for the best, always be preparing for the worst. And so that gives you confidence because you get to the point that you can handle whatever can happen down there. And it becomes eventually it just these corrections become knee-jerk reactions, right? You just feel you're going a little late into curve 12. Well, you got to drive it harder, otherwise you're going to go into a loop and lose a bunch of time. And so it's a lot like when you're driving on the freeway. You're thinking ahead, but somebody who's been driving for 30 years has a lot more that experience and those hours. It's so much more. There's so much more data in your subconscious mind than a kid that just got their driver's permit.
Yeah, that's I've never heard of that before. You talk about visualizing the success right before the event, and you talk about visualizing the contingency plan. That's a really powerful tool that I've never considered before, but that I'm so glad that you could share with me. I can't imagine another sport or another activity than the luge, from what I've heard you describe, that requires so much self-control and so much body control. Because in your TED Talk, you talk about steering the sled by a little shrug of the shoulder or a little push up or down of the hip, and that if you happen to have hiccups at just the wrong time, you're going to crash and it's going to be terrible. So you need to be in total control of your body and total control of yourself and your mind. How did you finally achieve that self-control, and what was it that got you over the hump to feel like you were finally in control of yourself?
Well, things like I improved a lot that last couple of years. When I was learning at first, at first I was crashing 4 out of 5 times, right? They might put you on curve 12. If you go to Park City and you're starting there, they always put you on curve 12. You might be going 30 miles an hour, and nothing you do works, right? I mean, it's just not responding. You're overcorrecting, and you're just hitting walls the whole way down. And then you start figuring it out. You crash. Once you figure it out, then coach moves you up a couple of curves. Now you're going 40 miles an hour. 40 miles an hour, my gosh, it's too fast. And crash, figure it out, moves you. You literally crash your way to the top, right? It might take a couple of hundred runs now you're going from the top. Well, you're still crashing. You're still making mistakes. At first, I was crashing 4 out of 5, and then it went down to 3 out of 5. That was a great day, and then 1 out of 10. By the end of the second year, I'm crashing 1 out of 100. So it's experience. It's staying in the game long enough to learn, and even your breathing makes a difference. If you hold your breath the whole way down, you're gonna have slow reaction time.
Yeah.
You're automatically. It's easy to hold your breath for a minute if you're scared half to death, right? Well, but you're about a half a second slow if you hold your breath. That's 500 1,000ths of a second. That's a lot of time. And so they teach us to exhale at the entrance and exit of every curve, right, to help you stay relaxed. And then once you can do that, and it took me years before I could even do that all the way down, okay? Then the next step is, okay, now see if you can, you're breathing, but try to have a soft smile, right? Like you're going to get your picture. Not like this, but a soft smile, right? And they tell sprinters, loose hands and loose jaw, right? Because you're faster if you're loose. And so you do that, and slowly but surely, you start learning, and you start figuring out what it takes. But it takes a long time.
Yeah, there's a famous quote. I'm not remembering it exactly now, but it's something to the effect of, "It's easier to control an entire kingdom than it is to control your own mind."
Wow, that's really good. I've never heard that one before, but it's true. Yeah, controlling yourself, boy, that's the battle, right? And so that's why you have to have contingency planning. How am I going to handle it? When I first went to Lake Placid, they put me in a class with 15 guys, and they're quitting left and right. They're quitting because they got a bruise, and they either didn't want it as bad as I did, or they hadn't thought ahead of time. And I'll never forget, after my first run, the first time we went for a wheel training, right? We're going from a half-mile point from the old bobsled track on concrete. We're wearing tennis shoes, shorts, and a T-shirt and a helmet, going 50, 55 on concrete. I mean, you crash straight to the hospital. And I'll never forget, after my first run, I'm walking up the track because the U.S. team, the ones that were, that had paid the price, they put them on trucks driving to the top. Us newbies, they hand us the sled and we got to walk up. And right there, a couple of them quit because it was beneath them, right? I couldn't believe it. Well, I'm floating up, right? I was so happy that I made it down. And there's a few tourists, just a few. And there was this old man that had just seen me zip by. And after my first run ever, I just locked eyes on him. I said, "I won't be in the Olympics in 4 years." And he pauses and he goes, "Son, I think you're going to make it. I can see the passion in your eyes." And so, can people see the passion in your eyes when you tell them about your goals and dreams? Because that's how they know that you believe. It starts with passion. You got to want it.
That's amazing. And you know what? That leads me to the next and the final question that I want to ask you today is, if you could talk to 13-year-old Ruben or another 21-year-old kid out there that has improbable dreams, what's the best advice you can give them on how to accomplish something that seems impossible?
I would just say, if it's in your heart, don't listen. If anybody makes fun of you, if anybody laughs at your dream, get away from them, okay? Because there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your dream. The only thing that happened is you just ran into somebody that doesn't believe as much as you do. But they have the power to get you to doubt. They have the power to make you quit. So get away from them and go for those winners, because they will always help you, and encourage you and show you the way.
There's something powerful about being around people that believe in you and that think that your dreams are totally possible. And I've had experiences in my own career where people raised my expectation of what I even thought was possible because they believed in me. Then I started to believe in it. Then I became it.
Yeah. So you have to just go find that person that's already done what you want to do. Whenever I talk about that a lot in my keynotes, I've been speaking professionally 20 years now, and my background is copier sales, so I do lots of sales kickoffs. And I always tell them, go find the person that's salesperson of the year, salesperson of the month. Take them out to the Starbucks. They'll tell you everything, okay? And there's always pushback. They say, well, I don't want to impose. They're so busy. And I tell them, look, do it for their sake, okay? As long as you're really going to follow through and do whatever they say, as long as you be an action person, call them up. Because you know how they always say, oh, he's successful, but he's unfulfilled. He's not happy. Well, you know why? It's because success is not the gold medal. Everybody thinks it is, but it's just the silver medal. the gold medal is significance. That means you help somebody else succeed, right? That fills that little hole in your heart. And that's what you're doing through your podcast, right? You're taking all the lessons you learn, you're passing the torch. And so if you approach them and just do whatever they say, take action right away, they'll help you get that silver medal, and you help them get the gold. And you might even make a best friend.
I've been writing down notes on what you said this whole time because there are so many, I think, important and poignant phrases that you've said, and you just said another one. I didn't even have time to write it down. I'm gonna look up your book soon, but you need to find the belief to go with the desire. You need to find the courage to get started and the courage to endure. Success is inconvenient. If you hit a wall, don't quit. Find a way around it. Life is like a minefield. The smartest way to get across is to follow someone that's already walked through that minefield. There's so many things. Ruben, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on here with me today and sharing your knowledge, your inspiration, and I really hope that more of an audience can find you because I really do believe that you have just such a great message to share.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to Finding the Way with Ryan Lavarnway. Find previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.